Welcome to What the Bible Says, a Lugnuts podcast group production. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to us. Good evening. Who knows? Welcome to our still unnamed depression podcast. It's fine. I kind of like the unnamed depression podcast. I don't know. There's just something about it.
I guess if you like it, then that's good for you. It's good for me.
If you're new, if this is your first episode, we're going through Jerry Bridges, Edward T. Welch's book, Looking Up from Stubborn Darkness, book on depression. I'm Kenny Cramer, along with Steve Cox. And we're just going through it just as a helpful guide for you. I've been through the book. I believe this is now my fourth time going through it, if you count this. Mm-hmm. But Steve and I went through it one-on-one and just kind of went through the things that we thought were important in each chapter. And we thought, you know what, let's put this on a podcast. That way it can be helpful for other people. So we're on chapter 7. Chapter 7 is called Warfare. If you haven't listened to the other episodes, they are out. They are available. Just search for them. You'll find them on the World Wide Web. So here we go in chapter 7. Trying to find something right here. I think for me, the one big thing, maybe two, was kind of found in the last sentence of the second Rio paragraph. Even when depressed, a threat on our lives is enough to ensure a surge of energy, unless, of course, we didn't know an enemy was after us. But I think the big one was during times of suffering and difficulty, spiritual warfare is virtually guaranteed. I think if we can know that, that can give us, it could be an advantage for us, because then we know that, hey, we're dealing with spiritual warfare daily. That's a 24/7, 365 thing. That just doesn't stop, and won't stop until Christ comes back. But knowing that, we're just dealing with suffering and difficulty all the time, and spiritual warfare is there, that can be helpful to us.
I think the one on page 49 that just stuck out to me was just her next step was to fight smart.
Yeah.
And knowing as a coach, knowing your opposition and what you're up against, and to have a game plan and understand your enemy, and looking at scattering reports, and that's basically kind of what we're doing in this one, so that you're not caught unaware, because the Bible is very clear that Satan has a lot of strategies out there. And again, we want to caution listeners that be very careful about demonizing every little step that's out there, because then that can lead to, like, the devil's behind every little corner of what's going on, and that's not healthy. But what we also don't want to do is just dismiss the fact of spiritual warfare, because it's very real out there. The hard part about that is to discern, what does spiritual warfare look like? Is this really something that is from the enemy, or is this just me being stupid?
Yeah.
Is this my fear just coming because I'm a control freak?
Right.
And really this has nothing to do with Satan. So but having said that, just understanding, what are some of the potential, and whether you recognize it's from Satan or not doesn't make a difference.
Right.
Whether it's a lie from Satan or a lie from me, the strategy is still the same of how we overcome that.
Yeah. Then on page 50, it kind of dives into those strategies that Satan does use. The first sentence under Satan's strategies, which is the little subtitle there, Satan masquerades as an angel of light, which is 2 Corinthians 11:14, which means that he's not easily noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so true. I mean, he can come out of nowhere, and it can seem like, oh, you have that, oh, I found the light kind of moment, and then you get further on down, and then, it's still going, good, and then all of a sudden, man, boom, it just all falls apart, and then you're wondering, well, I thought everything was good, and then you realize that, well, I listened to the wrong light, because everything looked good from the outside, but once you got in it, man, it all flipped. And it can be like that. Or, it could just be sudden, or it can just be quick. So
if I was going to categorize Satan and all the different aspects of Satan, this would be the number one that I would say. He is the father of lies.
Yes.
He is the father of lies, and probably in all my years of counseling, and I'll just, give our listeners a little tool to put in your toolbox, is that I ask people when they come to me and they tell me, and I'll say, okay, now what lie are you believing, and what truth do you need to claim? And that can be very, very helpful, because we find ourselves in, whether it's Satan, whether it's me, wherever the source of the lie is, it's easy to start believing the lie.
Yeah.
And it's easy to start just going down a really bad path. And so that's where you almost got to grab yourself by the collar and say, okay, now stop. What lie am I believing here? But not only just put that off, but now say, what truth do I need to claim concerning the Bible? What does God say about this? And that was huge for me in my turnaround, because because of my tendency to want to control my situations, I would believe something that I knew wasn't true, but I wanted it to be true.
Right.
And it was just something that was totally erroneous and had no basis for it at all. And I just had to say, okay, now stop it. Okay, that's just not truth at all. What does God say about that particular situation? So I think this one's huge, and it's number one in the list of strategies here. Yeah. That and any of our listeners right now, just stop and say, okay, what lie am I believing? What truth do I need to claim?
Right. And then underneath that paragraph, where that sentence is, there's lies, which is one of the strategies there. And then on page 51, there's two sentences that I really liked at the end of the paragraph from page 50 going into 51, the last couple sentences. If you feel that God has abandoned you, then you believe that he actually has. Nothing will persuade you otherwise. In other words, feelings can lie. And, yeah, your feelings do lie. Your feelings will lie to you, especially if you think that God has abandoned you, which you should realize that he won't and he never will. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. God is always there with you. It doesn't matter. And he's never going to leave, ever, ever. That's not in his repertoire to just say, you know what, Steve, today I'm just going to...
You're on your own.
You're on your own, man. Good luck. If you need me, give me a holler, leave me a message.
Tomorrow.
I'll get back to you. Right. God will never do that. If God ever does that, well, then we're all doomed.
Yeah, we're all in trouble.
yeah, we're all in trouble, and you better hope that you can get on God's good side again. But it's never going to happen. And then it goes into, there's lies about us, which is another big area that Satan is another strategy that he uses, and his lies are calculated and strategic. It's like he plans this stuff out years in advance. And then when he acts upon it, it's like that plan was almost executed flawlessly.
And one of the biggest lies about us, which I see often, it says, you believe that some things you've done are too bad to be forgiven. That's one of the, and again, that doesn't mean that God's thrilled about your sin, but that's a lie, because the Bible teaches there's nothing that can separate us from the love of God. There's nothing that's so hideous and heinous. Now, doesn't mean that it doesn't have consequences.
Right.
Consequence doesn't erase the consequences. So, it's not like you just get a completely get out of jail free card. But that's one of those lies as far as what, Satan would have us believe about us. That's you're the worst of the worst. There's no way God could ever forgive you for what you've done.
Right. And that kind of ties into the lie that's right underneath that. Do you believe it's impossible for the Holy God to love you and even delight in you? I mean, those two just kind of go hand in hand, because God will love you even if you've sinned. Now, he's not happy about the sin, obviously, but it doesn't change how he feels about you. So just remember that. Then on page 52, man, I've got the person who had this book before me had a pink highlighter. So I just have like pink highlighter going all through here and ink pen all over the place. So trying to figure out important stuff is kind of hard right now. But then there's lies about God, which is a big one, because we all know that Satan will lie about God. And then
Well, lies about God go all the way back to the garden.
Right.
Which is where the Satan said to Eve, did God really say?
Right.
Did God really,
Yeah.
That whole idea of just placing doubt. It's not so much just coming out and saying, God hates you, or whatever. It's that subtle
question.
Right, exactly. You begin to question, and that's exactly what Eve, Satan obviously deceived her in that situation to say that, as a matter of fact, God, he's actually being kind of cruel, because if you ate that, then you wouldn't need God.
Right.
You'd be God.
Right.
And again, those are just lies about, that's now moved out, away from the lies about me to lies about God and who God is. And we begin to diminish his love and his power in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, because then underneath there, it's you will not surely die, saying that, because God said you will die if you ate of the fruit. And Satan was like, no, you won't.
Sure.
God knows that.
Well, trying to erase those consequences.
Right. And trying to make, Adam and Eve into their own form of God. And just, you don't need God. You don't need to rely on him. God. What is that? But yeah, I think that's the biggest one. And then there's a question that Satan likes to say, can God's words really be trusted? I mean, if we start believing that lie and start questioning the words of God, oh boy. Yeah. And then perhaps he is stingy. God is stingy, according to Satan. Yeah. That is another really big lie, because God is the opposite of stingy, and his words can be trusted. And then there's lies that focus on temporal and spiritual realities. You have a strong marriage, isn't God good? Your health is fine, isn't God good? Your bills are paid and there's some money in the bank, isn't God good? Are all things that Satan will kind of ask you and say, hey, yeah, look at that. Isn't God good? Isn't God good? Yeah. Yeah, things are going well, but what if things are going wrong?
Right.
Is God still good then?
Right. Yeah, that's the whole Job situation. Take away all those things, and surely he'll curse you.
Right.
And again, that's just one of those attacks from the enemy that we have to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. And then and then it goes into our counterattack and how we can counteract those lies on page 54. One is remember that we have an enemy, and that is Satan. He's enemy number one. I mean, he should be your enemy number one because he's always going to try and find a way to get you to doubt, like he did Eve, and then once he gets you to start doubting, then he's kind of got you.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can get out of it, obviously, but if you can get into that, if he can get you into that doubt realm, then he's got a pretty good chance of kind of starting to get you to question everything that you believe in.
Sure, it gets back into the balance that we have to have of saying, I don't want to demonize everything that's out there, but I have to recognize that the spiritual warfare is very real. And so we have to say, okay, is this something possibly, because that goes on to the next, that next counterattack, assume that warfare rages. And the word assume there is key. It is, I don't know, for example, but there is a battle that's raging.
Right.
Where it's coming from, who, is it the world around me? Is it me personally, or is it Satan? I think the Bible says those are the three main areas that we struggle with. There is a war that is raging out there, and we'd all like to say, well, man, we like to skip that part of it, but that's part of being human and living in the world, the sin-cursed world that we live in.
Right. And then don't think that your case is unique either.
Right.
Because it's not.
Right.
Because everyone goes through depression. Everyone will go through. In this case, the book always kind of puts depression with suffering. So everyone's going to go through some form of suffering. Yeah, you're not going to find someone who hasn't gone through it.
Mm-hmm.
If they haven't gone through it yet, they will.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Everyone's going to go through it, so don't think that, oh, my suffering is so unique that no one else has gone through it. No, that's a lie.
Well, it can lead to pity party, number one.
Right.
And number two, isolating yourself.
Yeah.
Which is both, that's both what Satan wants you to do.
Right.
Fall into a pity party for yourself and just kind of isolate yourself from the group.
Right. And no one is immune from this either. I mean, because everyone can give personal examples. And then another way to counterattack it is that kind of the obvious one, the one that we haven't touched yet is know Christ. You were probably thinking, why should that be number one? Well, I don't have the answer to that. If you want to ask Edward T. Welch someday and say, hey, why wasn't know Christ number one? Then you can, because I don't have an answer for you. Steve, I don't think you have an answer either. So
I don't know if he's putting them in order of, for this is more important, this is less. I mean, it does make a little bit of a sense that I do need to know my enemy first. I'm going to take a look at a scouting report first, and then here's the plan of attack. And to me, this is one of the ones that I think sometimes we make spiritual warfare way more complicated than what it needs to be.
Yeah.
In James, it talks about if we come near to God, he comes near to us. We resist the devil, and he flees. Yeah. And the way that I believe we resist the devil is by Ephesians chapter 6, is taking a look at putting on the full armor of God. Okay, so knowing Christ, coming near to him, because the example, I think, is pretty clear in the New Testament. Anytime Jesus showed up and there were demons, boy, they didn't want anything to do with that.
No,
they were gone.
No,
they were gone.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not just saying that you just take your Bible and kind of wave it in the air and the demons go away. But if you have a robust relationship with the God of this universe, the Bible says you come near to God, he'll come near to you. And the enemy, it doesn't say the enemy just kind of like saunters or just walks. The enemy flees.
Right.
Because the enemy wants nothing to do with God. And so, again, today's podcast, if you didn't get anything else out of today's podcast, what lie are you believing? What truth do you need to claim?
Yeah.
And you come near to God, and he'll come near to you.
Right. And then the knowledge of Christ is revealed most fully at the cross. The death and resurrection of Jesus is just the thing of first importance. And it's like This to me kind of feels like the salvation part of the chapter, kind of trying to get you to believe. Because if you're not, then this is a great time to say, hey, start now.
Mm-hmm.
What a better opportunity than to just start right now. I feel like this was kind of the salvation part, trying to share the gospel with the reader. Obviously, if you're a Christian, then you've already gone through the gospel's part, and you're already saved and stuff like that. But I mean, if you haven't, then start now.
Right.
And then page 56, you're still going through all of the other things that goes along with knowing Christ. And then it's humble yourself before the Lord is the next one. And that's a big one. Because humility and pride we'll get into more in chapter 9, which is coming up a little bit quickly. But humility says, God owes me nothing. He's not my servant. I am his. God is God, and he has the right to do anything he wants. Just knowing the difference between humility and pride, just saying, okay, I'm going to take a step back. God, you're in control. I know you're going to work, but I don't want to interfere because I'm not God, thankfully. And you're not God. So once we can realize that, it's like, I think we have a good grasp on things.
Well, it's the whole idea of humble yourself before the Lord immediately just says, not my will, but your will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that I can still pray and say, Lord, please answer my prayers, and I'm a little confused about what's going on here. Doesn't mean we just have to totally resign ourselves, be fatalistic, and just say, well, this is never going to happen, or I just got to, take a whooping for Jesus here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of just saying, Lord, whatever I'm going through right now is difficult. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But Lord, I know in the midst of what's going on, I don't want to waste this opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I will humble myself and I will submit to you, because you know better. I think we have a very inflated view of self. Yeah. Like God owes me an explanation for what's going on. Yeah. And when I can't figure out why, or see the purpose behind it, that's, to me, when that whole humility part really has to kick in and say, okay, Lord, this has got to be about you, not about me. And that's hard, especially depending upon the level of what, whatever has put you in a position that you're depressed. Usually you just don't get depressed over, well, life's good,
right.
Something you signal for a fastball and you got a knuckle curve or something, you go, I didn't see this. So I don't want to downplay whatever our listeners are experiencing right now. It's very real. It could be very painful, but yet, God is in the midst of what's going on, and I have to preach that to myself all the time.
Yeah. And then the response. So there's a few questions that really stood out to me. First, is your alliance to Jesus Christ? That's the first one. And then, I mean, if it's not, be open to knowing about him. And that goes back to, everything on page 55 and 56 about knowing Christ. And then the second one is, how could you refuse an opportunity to consider a person who promises life and hope? Going back to knowing Christ. So that's another big question. And the last big question on this page under the response is, do you want to change? I mean, that's the biggie. I mean, do you want change? Because if you do, then you have answers here. I mean, if you don't, then I guess at this point you can just put the book down and stop reading it, because there's no point. If you don't want to change and you like where you are and you're happy in your misery, and
Probably not happy in your misery in the fact that, but you've learned how to manage your misery. And this is again where it becomes a trust issue of I understand what I'm going through. I'm not really happy about what my situation is, but I know how to manage it and what the outcome looks like. As opposed to what we're suggesting is to trust Christ, humble yourself before the Lord. That is scary because that's the unknown. Because now at this point in time, you have to say, Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah.
And so right now I got a hold of the wheel. And it's a train wreck, but at least I know where this train wreck's going. Me now saying, okay, Jesus, you take the wheel, even though I know it would be better, really talks about that struggle of the human heart and just wanting to have that idol of control and comfort and being my own God, which is what my problem was when I battled my depression. I just want to be God. And that part's already taken.
Yeah. So I'll leave you with this. If you're willing to do battle, then just be ready to do your part because, well, it's going to be a task, and God knows you're up for it. He's not going to give you anything you can't handle. But just remember, it's going to be a fight, but you can get through it, and God is never going to leave you. So that'll do it for Chapter 7. Chapter 8, we'll do it next week, hopefully next week. And that is the title, Remember. So for Steve Cox, I'm Kenny Cramer saying we'll see you next week.
We hope you enjoyed the podcast today. If you did, please check out our website for more podcast episodes and shows at thelugnauspodcastgroup.com. Like us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll see you next week.